We're so pleased that you have joined us. Thank you, Bill, once again.
Delighted to be back. It's always a pleasure, Gleaves.
All right. Well, I worked up a few questions, and I just thought I would start with, if you could tell us, what was the most surprising thing you learned about FDR in the course of researching and writing Traitor to his class?
The biggest surprise for me was how well prepared Franklin Roosevelt was to be president. Because I had read, as just about everybody who studies Roosevelt had, Walter Lippmann's criticism of Roosevelt when he was running for president in 1932, how his principal qualification was that he was a very nice man who really wanted to be president. But in fact, Franklin Roosevelt had been preparing for the presidency from the time he was 20 years old. Okay, you good? All right. His fifth cousin, and then uncle by marriage, Theodore Roosevelt, was president when Franklin Roosevelt was in college. And Franklin Roosevelt married Eleanor Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's niece, in a ceremony presided over by the President of the United States. Roosevelt at that point understood that there was a reasonable expectation that if he wanted to, he could be president, and he decided that he did want to be. This put Roosevelt in a very rare category of presidents, of people who become president, but who for 20 years or more have been in a position of actively preparing for the job. It's part of American mythology that any boy can grow up to be president. Maybe we can say now any girl can grow up to be president. But for most people, that's just an idle dream. But for a couple of people, I would say John Quincy Adams, whose father was president of the United States, so he could see hopes involved, and for Franklin Roosevelt. So Roosevelt had been planning, preparing, taking all the right steps. He served in the New York legislature. He was Assistant Secretary of the Navy, so he had 7 years in Woodrow Wilson's administration in Washington, and he was twice elected governor of New York. And in fact, as governor of New York, he got a dry run, a test run, for being a chief executive during the Depression. In fact, he got to try out many of the programs that became part of the federal New Deal as part of what could have been called a New York New Deal, except the label New Deal hadn't yet been coined. So that was the thing that surprised me most, how well prepared Franklin Roosevelt was to be president on the day he became president.
And how did your opinion of FDR as a person and as a president change in the course of researching and writing this book?
Well, one of the things that I concluded as I was doing the research was that the Second World War is what really holds the key to understanding Roosevelt's presidency and his leadership. Because if you do a thought experiment, imagine that there was no Second World War, then Roosevelt would have left office after the 1940 election. He almost certainly would have been replaced by a Republican. And Republicans would have started to dismantle what remained of the New Deal. The signature aspect of the New Deal, the signature